Hi everyone, Brian Kral here in Vienna, right in between the Museum of Natural Science and also the Fine Arts Museum. And I'm here to do a very short but awesome video for you on the psychology of being a badass and what it means to be a badass and why people are so fascinated with badasses, you know, on TV and in the movies and such, and why everyone wants to be a badass, what that means, and how you can be a badass yourself. I thought of this recently because someone was asking me just about my lifestyle and how I live, what I do and such. And they said, man, you're such a badass. I wish I could do stuff like that. And this is something that I've gotten before. And it made me think about like what that means. Because I don't think of myself like that. You know, I don't do things just to be a badass, right? I just sort of do what I want. And I was thinking about that and also the show Breaking Bad, why people are so fascinated with, you know, these badass characters. You know, Breaking Bad is the biggest show of all time. The next biggest show, and was the biggest show of all time before Breaking Bad, was The Sopranos. You know, and gangster movies and action movies and movies where there's this badass hero type are always so popular. And so I got to thinking about the psychology behind this and why badasses are so popular and so fascinating to people, and people admire them and want to be like them. And what it really is the psychology of the badass is that the badass does whatever the fuck they want. And why people are so fascinated by this idea of the badass who just does what he wants is because most people don't feel like they can do what they want, because they don't feel confident enough and empowered enough, right? They haven't given themselves permission to do what they want because they've been very disempowered by society. So people really admire that figure of the badass who does whatever they want because they wish that they could be like that and do what they want in their life. But they're not, which is why that person called me a badass, and wasn't the first time I've heard that, just because I live my life doing what I want, you know, going on adventures, doing all sorts of extreme things that no one else dares to do, just living outside of social norms especially, and being a rebel, breaking taboos, things like that, you know, which I've always done because of the fact that I don't agree with social norms, right? And that's one of the things that a badass does, is a badass does not adhere to social norms, right? And a badass has no problem with going against social norms and breaking taboos in order to just do whatever they want, which is something that's good to do because most social norms are not actually ones that have your best interest in mind. Most of them are meant to put limitations around you, you know, and turn you into a conformist that is doing what is good for society. So it's good to rebel against social norms and break taboos because they're really just things that are constraints and confinements meant to put you into a box and get you to do, you know, whatever society wants rather than what is in your best interest. So the badass is someone who gives himself or herself permission to do whatever they want in spite of any sort of social norms and taboos that they may be breaking when they do so. Understand? And that makes other people in society, when they see that, go, oh my God, look at what that person's doing. They're so bad, right? But they're really not. They're just someone who puts their own self-interests before the interest of society, which is actually not keeping their best interest in mind, right? And who else is going to keep your best interest in mind but you, right? Society is not going to do for you what you want to be doing in life, right? It's up to you to know what is right for you and have your best interest in mind and be doing what you want to do with your life. No one else is going to do it for you, right? So a badass is just someone who realizes that and takes the initiative necessary to do what they want in life and live how they want in spite of social norms and taboos. You know, they refuse to be a conformist. They will rebel against that social paradigm of conformity and whatever social structure they live in, and they will give themselves permission to do what they want in spite of if it is socially acceptable or not. And they will do what they want radically even. In some cases, they may do things that seem very extreme and break social norms and taboos in extreme ways. Like when I was living in Mexico for the 6 months before I started going on my second world tour, I wanted to date in that culture, obviously, and have sex. And I found that in the city that I was living in, most girls only went out with large groups of family members. People are more social with their families in that culture than in any other culture. So it was interesting, you know, their families were like their friends. And in most cultures, if you saw someone you wanted to approach and they were with their family, you generally wouldn't do it. It just doesn't seem socially acceptable to try to go chat up and flirt with and hit on someone who's right there with their family, right? But in Mexico, it was something that was necessary. If I was going to be talking to women and dating, I needed to be approaching women right there in front of their families, right? And even be forthcoming about my intentions and my attraction to them and my want to date them. Otherwise, they may think I'm just being friendly, since it was a very social culture and everyone was very friendly, right? So I needed to be very forthcoming about my intentions. And I had to then give myself permission to do something that I had never done before, which was to approach women right in front of their mother and their father and sometimes their whole extended family. And it was awkward at first, but I got used to it and I started doing it very naturally and was able to become very comfortable with being socially aggressive in that way, where I wouldn't be scared off by the fact that a very attractive woman, who's already intimidating, of course, you know, when you see someone who's very attractive and you want to talk to them, that already is intimidating and makes you a bit nervous, right? But then imagine that they're surrounded by their whole family who's going to be watching and listening to you while doing it. And I also had to do this in a new language that I was just learning that I felt very awkward with using. But I gave myself permission to step outside of my comfort zone and do things that were awkward for me and that made me extremely nervous, and just train myself to be able to go for it very aggressively and just do whatever I want in spite of whatever situation I found myself in and whatever obstacles were in the way, you know, be it family members or whatever, right? I just started going for it like a fucking badass.
Wait a minute. Now a word from our sponsor, me. Do you value the ability to use words to do things such as compose meaningful sentences and speak the truth? Did you know that here in this great country of America, you have the right to free speech? And so do I. And if you don't support people who are exercising that right, then you are probably a fascist dictator. Just like the YouTube algorithm, which stifles the content of patriotic people like me who dare to speak out against the gynocentric, matriarchal, feminist regime that has been aggressively taking over our country. And if YouTube isn't going to promote my content and is going to suppress it instead, I can only rely upon you, my viewers, to show your support. If you don't support free speech, we will stop having it. Which is exactly what is already happening, with YouTube videos that censor themselves getting promoted and explicit ones like mine getting shadow banned. So, if you like listening to me use my free speech, make sure to press like and share and donate whatever you can with the PayPal link below. Don't make me work for free and get censored like a fucking communist. And with the presidential election coming up, your donations can literally be used to fund my campaign to get into the White House and abolish the matriarchy once and for all. Literally. Who would you rather have as your president? An old limp-dick liberal leftist cuck with noodly arms who's probably never been in a real fight in his life? Or a good old-fashioned, misogynistic, patriarchal man's man like me, with balls big enough to stand up to women, and who you can count on to speak out against them and tell it like it is. Fight the feminazi dictatorship. Spread the message of masculinism. Keep my work alive. And now, back to our regularly scheduled content.
And the same thing is true with travel. You know, I've been doing that same thing with travel, stepping way outside my comfort zone and doing things that are so uncomfortable and new and foreign to me and maybe even scary at times. And that is just how I live my life. Okay, I have trained myself to be able to just do what I want, no matter what it is, what situation I'm in, and what limitations I'm faced with, because otherwise I'm not going to be living the life that I want to live. I'm not going to be able to do with myself what I want, and no one is going to take care of my self-interests except for me. So that is how I live. I just do whatever the fuck I want, whenever I want, however I want. Even here now, this is actually a place where I'm not supposed to be filming. Filming here is illegal. I found that out after researching, and filming in Vienna is illegal basically everywhere. Okay, but especially at monuments and in front of important buildings like these, you're not supposed to be filming. But guess what? I'm fucking doing it anyway, because this is my life. I am a videographer. This is what I do, and I'm not going to let anything fucking stop me from doing my life's work. Just how a handful of months ago, I got my TLR Sexuality YouTube channel taken down by YouTube for linking it with my Pornhub channel where I make pornography and do live demonstrational sex ed stuff, right? And YouTube didn't like me doing that, so they took down my whole entire channel. They had 4 million views and 14,000 subscribers and 250 videos on it. And they said that I was banned from YouTube and I wasn't allowed to make another channel. But what did I do? I just fucking made another one, okay? Because this is what I do. This is my life's work, right? This is who I am, and I'm not going to let anything or anyone stop me from doing what is important to me in life, because that is what I need to do in order to live the way that I want, and that is the way that you need to live. You need to do the same. You have to be able to do what you want in life in spite of anything that may be standing in your way, because the universe is just not going to hand it to you. You need to learn to go for it and even train yourself to deal with the awkwardness and nervousness of stepping outside of your comfort zone, and the challenges of facing obstacles, and especially the breaking of social norms and taboos, and learn to just be a fucking badass who does whatever you fucking want, whenever you want, in any situation that you want to do it. And that actually is what civilization as a whole is built on, okay? All of these leaders of civilization, from the conquistadors that founded new lands to the kings and queens that then came into power and governed them, were all badasses who would just go for it and take initiative and do whatever the fuck they wanted, even very aggressively and dominantly, right? And just go into places and take them over, okay? And start living the life that they wanted there and creating the reality that they wanted. And that is what a badass does. But most people are not doing what they want in life because they've been so disempowered by their social conditioning, which is what I help people to overcome and break through their limitations and start to empower themselves and do what they want in life. So you've got to stop letting your social conditioning stop you from doing what you want in life and limit you from living the life that you want to live. And you've got to be more of a badass who just does whatever you want, no matter what.
If you're a macho man like me, you love Mafia movies. Now, unfortunately, they haven't come out with any good ones since like the 90s, but fortunately, I've written my take on the great American novel, a new classic for our time, The American Mafioso, a short crime novella that is written in scenes just like a movie and is equally psychological as action-packed. It's a super short and exciting page-turner that will keep you on the edge of your seat right up through the shocking finish. Get yours at the link below for the super low price of just $5. And if you love mafia stories and gang culture and want to understand the truth behind the mafia from a more academic perspective and get into the history, culture, sociology, politics, business, and psychology of the mafia, then my new book, The Italian-American Mafia, a Socio-Political Perspective, is just for you. The Italian-American Mafia, called Cosa Nostra, was the most powerful organization this country has ever seen. So, what secrets can we men learn from old-school mafiosi to help us improve our lives today? This book gives a gritty inside look at the mafia along with an intellectual analysis of it that makes this book perfect for someone who is just as nerdy as they are macho. Get yours in the link below for the low price of just $10. The perfect books for a man's man to read while on the toilet, for instance, or just on the couch, or in your favorite chair, or a throne perhaps, or anywhere you might sit and watch TV, except this time instead of watching TV, you're reading, so that you don't have to be stupid from only watching TV. And unlike most books, these aren't even boring. This one, in fact, is just as exciting as watching a movie if you were watching a movie in book reading form, while this one is extremely intellectually stimulating. Now, you can actually get smarter from reading while also being super entertained at the same time. It's a modern miracle of science. The science of the mafia. The science of machismo. So hurry up and get your copies today before I have to jack up the prices, skim more off of the top on account of inflation eating up all of my profits. I got a business to run, you know. Now go on, get out of here before I have you whacked. Capiche? Alright. So, hurry up and get your copies below before I have to jack off the price.